So we now are there at the beginning of our lovely guest session. And today we have with us two beautiful sisters in Baba's love. We have Freny and Freny Auntie and Gulnar, that's Freny de Mello and Gulnar Aidenwala, who are the lovely daughters of Sarosh Irani. It is also the anniversary today, 9th January 1973, Sarosh Irani went to Baba. And today this sharing is to share his life and devotion to beloved Baba. Freny de Mello and Gulnar Aidenwala, the beautiful sisters, are here to share with us some stories from the lives of their parents, Sarosh Irani and Villoo Irani, on this day. Before they begin, I would like to share this passage, which is from meherbabatravels.com, written by Sarosh Irani himself. It is about how he met beloved Baba. It was in 1920 that I was returning from Panchgani to Ahmednagar after giving my examination. On the way, I had to pass through Pune. There, I received a letter to take to my aunt from Pune. My aunt, however, told me that we should start earlier as she had to meet someone on the way. We went into a tonga which passed through the Ferguson College Road where Meher Baba was in a jhopdi. Asking me to stay in the tonga, she went inside the jhopdi. From inside the tonga, I noticed a group of people sitting there with a little fire burning, and one of them was playing the dholak and singing ghazal. Later on, Baba asked my aunt as to who was sitting in the tonga. She said, "Don't worry, he is my nephew coming from Panchgani." Baba told her, "You call him. I have got much work to be done by him." Later on, so I went to him and sat near him. He patted me on my head and then on the back and asked me what I was doing. He then asked, "What do you want to do for the future?" I said, "Of course, I have to pass matric and go to college and then do as to what is destined in my future." He asked me to give up education and everything and go unto him. Being young in heart, young in spirit, and young in age, I immediately accepted it. And today I am his disciple. He patted me and said, "I would like to make you king." And today I am a king. This is how I contacted my beloved Baba. This is what Sarosh Irani wrote. Now I would like to request Gulnar Aidenwala to begin the sharing, followed by her sister Freny de Mello after that. Jai Baba. Gulnar auntie, please unmute. Perfect.
Yeah. Jai Baba, everybody. And Roshni, thank you for having me here this evening. I'm a trifle nervous because I'm not very adept at talking, but I'll tell you all what I can remember about my dad. My father, Sarosh Irani, what does it conjure up in my mind? I see him first as a loving and indulgent father who spoilt me rotten. I think I was his favorite. He was a tall, handsome, dynamic person with a zest for life, which he lived to the full. He was kind, but had a quick, fiery Irani temper, but never bore a grudge or ill feeling to anyone. He was generous to a fault and was always ready to help others, even to the detriment of himself. He worked hard, was a self made man, who rose to great heights where wealth and position was concerned. It was his absolute faith in Baba that saw him through life, the good and the bad. He had a very poor business sense and lost everything that he had built due to his poor management. He hit rock bottom, went through serious illnesses, but never once did it let him get him down or did he show the world what he was experiencing. Because he knew that Baba was there and would help him through whatever was in store for him. It was this absolute faith in Baba that guided him through the vicissitudes of life. After all, Baba did tell him when he was a young lad of 18 years, "Come to me and I will make you king." My father was born on the 22nd of April, 1903 in Ahmednagar. His parents were Kekeshru and Gulnar, the latter being the sister of Adi Senior's father, also a Kekeshru. He was one of 5 children, a brother and 3 sisters, and they all lived in Kushru quarters, which is now the trust office, with Adi Senior family as a joint family. I don't know much of his early boyhood. I'm sure he must have been full of pranks and mischief as any normal boy. But later on, he was sent to the Parsi Boys High School in Panchgani. Now, I do remember him telling us that he was not a good student and didn't excel at his studies. But he did excel in sports, especially in cricket, and was in the school team. And he said for that reason alone, he was promoted every year because they wanted him in the team. And the ironic part was that he received numerous school prizes for cricket, but in the form of books, and that to the English classics, which he never read. I found several of them amongst a collection at Villoo Villa, most of them unopened and unread, as the pages were still stuck together. Now, as you just heard Roshani give us an introduction as to how my father first came to Baba, I shall not repeat that. But I would like to say that his father, Kekeshru, was dead against Baba and wouldn't even allow him anywhere in the vicinity of his property. So he was not very happy about my father following Meher Baba or going to him. But that did not deter my dad because he followed Baba. He joined him in Bombay. It was Baba who got him a job after he passed his metric. He got him a job in an automobile engineering company. And he also found him accommodation to stay in Bombay before he joined Baba at Manzil-e-Meen. Now, from what I remember Dad telling us, living there at Manzil-e-Meen was not an easy matter. They had to follow stringent rules, which if you did not follow and Baba came to hear of it, your belongings, your bedding, your belongings, everything was kept outside on the doorstep. And then, of course, you had to go and had to beg for forgiveness and Baba would take you back again. Now, this happened to my father several times because the rules he had to follow were quite strict. I mean, he was told when he went to work and he would travel by local train, he was not to look at any of the hoardings on the way. Neither was he to acknowledge any of his friends or relatives. Now, this was difficult, and there were several times inadvertently when my father broke these rules. And then, of course, when he went back to Manzil-e-Meen, he found his bedding and his bag and everything was left outside on the doorstep. And then he went inside and then he begged Baba forgiveness, and Baba, of course, accepted him back again. Now, after a year, I think that he stayed in Manzil-e-Meen, he went with Baba to Quetta and then from there to Karachi. So when he returned to Nagar, soon after, he receives a telegram from Baba to say, open a motor workshop in Nagar immediately. So with just 500 rupees, he started his automobile garage, which was then known as Sarosh Motors, which became a landmark in Nagar together with Sarosh Cinema. And both flourished for many years together, but towards the end of his life, he lost them both. I mean, his business went down, and the motor workshop went, and the cinema went. I suppose it was Baba's way of making him let go of all earthly attachments, and also not to let his ego and pride get the better of him. Now, after after a while, after a few years later, Baba called Sarosh to him and asked him if he would like to get married and whether he had any girl in mind. So Baba did tell him yes, there was a certain girl whom he was interested in. So Baba told him, you go and propose to that girl, but she will reject you because of her parents. But even so, if she does reject you, he says, uh, you should ask if she rejects you because of her parents, then you tell her to elope with you. So and if she refuses that, then you should forget her. Now, Sarosh was a little, perplexed at this strange order. And why should he propose to a girl if the Baba already knew that he was going to be rejected? Now, he didn't question Baba because that was just not done. You didn't question him once he gave an order. So then he asked Adi Senior, okay, what does Baba mean by this? So Adi told him that Baba wants you to hear the refusal from her, because otherwise you would always have a doubt in your mind that Baba may have been wrong and the girl may have accepted him. So Sarosh followed Baba's orders and proposed to the girl, and as predicted, she refused him, and Sarosh returned to Nagar heartbroken and quite despondent. The family suggested number of girls, but my dad was not really interested in them. And then one day he went to the Pune races where my mother was also taken. My mother was only 15 years old. She was all nicely dressed up in a sari and all, and she went off and she was taken to the Pune races where my father saw her. And he liked what he saw. So then he told Baba about meeting my mother, and Baba said that he can marry her, and so that's how my dad and my mother met and got married. Now, in later years, Baba is supposed to have given Rudram, that is Adi Senior's brother, a gift. He gave him a horse, and he gave Adi Senior a car. So Baba questioned Baba. So my father questioned Baba on that and said, you gave them a gift. You gave one a horse. You gave one one a cow. What about me? So Baba turned around and told him, but I gave you Villoo, and that was Baba's gift to my dad. Now so obviously Baba knew when he selected Villoo as Sarosh's bride that she would be good for him. And she had a calming effect on my father. She could control his temper, his impetuousness. She was wise. She had an astute sense of business, unlike my father. She may not have been educated. I don't think she even passed her metric, but she was clever, and she soon learned the ways of living in society, how to, carry herself, how to speak, and she could identify herself with the poorest and with the highest at the same time. She dressed well, and she had good taste. She was an asset to my father's business. My mother did not conceive her first child till after 10 years of marriage. By then, most had given up on her ever having a child. So when she did conceive, there was much jubilation in the family. They had a son. My grandfather wanted to name him Hormuz, but my father was adamant that he would be named Meher after Baba. So when I was born, my dad wanted to name me Freny. That was his girlfriend whom he liked. But Baba told him no, that I should be named Gulnar after his mother who had died a few years earlier. And after, maybe he said after 4 years, you can change her name from Gulnar to Freny if he wanted. So, but what happened after 4 years? My sister was born and she was named Freny. So, in all these um, in all these years, uh, in, my grandfather never came round to accepting Baba, and that really upset my father because he loved his father dearly and he wanted him to believe in Baba and to accept him. But my grandfather was quite adamant about that. So my father spoke to Baba about it and how unhappy he made him. But Baba told him, "Don't worry about it," he said. He said, "Your father is a good, kind, generous man. And the fact that he thinks of me, even though they're negative thoughts, is good because I am in his thoughts." So Villoo also, when she got married as a young girl, she did not believe in Baba as God. And my father mentioned this to Baba, but Baba told him, "Don't worry, that in time to come, she will come around and she will accept me. It will take some years." Now, there is an amusing story which I just read the other day. I've got something written on my mother, and she has wrote this down. She said they had gone to see Baba one day, and Baba wanted to test Sarosh, and so he wanted to test Sarosh in his love and obedience for him, and told him that say if I ordered you to cut off Villoo's head, would you do that? So my father unhesitatingly said yes. But Villoo, who was ever forthright and not at all hypocritical, where her belief in Baba was, says, "No, but I wouldn't allow it, since I don't trust you, Baba, to make me alive again." So, but my mother did come to accept Baba, but that was in much later on. Now, one day, as I said, my father had this cinema house, and it was doing very well. And they lived in Kushru Quarters, which was just near Sarosh Cinema. It was in the same compound actually. Now one day, Baba was with his several of his male mandli, and he mentioned to them that Japan had just entered the war, and they should be a little careful in Nagar as there will be a bombing. So they all sort of laughed and told Baba, who would want to come all the way to Nagar and throw a bomb in Nagar? Nagar was such a small, insignificant little town. So Baba just sort of smiled at them, and my dad and the others just thought it was one of Baba's jokes. But some months later, it was Christmas Day, 1942, and the film Chocolate Soldier was showing at Sarosh Cinema. And it was interval. Soldiers and the officers were all milling around when there was a big explosion. And this explosion took place just where my father was standing. But miraculously, he didn't receive a scratch. There were many others around him some were killed and maimed. His brother-in-law also, who was just a few feet from him, got a shrapnel in his forehead, but he survived. So it wasn't actually a bomb. It was a hand grenade thrown by some Congress leaders who were supporting the Quit India movement. this immediately brought to mind what Baba had told him a few months ago. My father referred to it as one of Baba's chamatkars or miracles. But Baba has always said that he doesn't perform miracles. It's your faith and love in him that makes it happen. Now, as we all know, Baba expected complete obedience from his followers. Once he gave an order, there was no questioning him or doing the opposite, because if you did that, things would surely go wrong. My mother told us that when my brother was just about 2 years old, they were in Bombay, and he had measles, and he had very, very high fever, and he was very sick. And just then my dad gets a telegram from Baba saying, okay, leave tonight with Villoo and Mehrbaan and come to Pune. My mother was not very happy about this at all. I mean, how do you travel with a 2-year-old child with high fever going to Pune? And she did not want to. She did not want to go, but my father was adamant. He says, no, an order from Baba had to be followed, whatever. And so they got into the car and they drove to Pune. And of course, all went well. Nothing happened to my brother. And the same thing a few years later, Baba gives another order to my dad, where he and Ramju were supposed to go to Bangalore. And again, it so happened my brother was down with high fever, but there was no stopping my dad. He said, no, Baba's orders, and we have to go, and that's how it was. But on one occasion, my father did not obey Baba's orders. And that was a time when my father was diagnosed with an enlarged prostate, and he had to go to Bombay for the surgery. So he went to Baba and was directed by him to go to, I'm not mentioning the doctor's name, so I will just call them A and B. So Baba directed him to Dr. B. But my husband, who was a surgeon, had suggested another surgeon, a Dr. A. So when my father told Baba about this and said, hey, I've been told to go to Dr. A and that he's the better person. So Baba said, okay, you do what you want. And it so happened, but my father disobeyed Baba and he went to Dr. A. Now you can imagine what happened. Everything that could possibly go wrong from beginning to end, where the surgery was concerned, where the healing was concerned, everything went wrong. And for many months together, my father was a sick man. So after some months went by, my father went back to Baba and told him that, look, I would like to have another surgery done, a correction done. So please, who do I go to? So Baba told him, now this time you listen to me and you go to Dr. B. So sure enough, my father, without any hesitation, went to Dr. B, and the procedure was a success, and my father was back to his normal self. So you see, you had to listen to Baba, otherwise things did not go right. Now, my father had a passion for big American cars and took a lot of joy and pride in owning them. So one day he bought this beautiful green, I remember it was a beautiful green Oldsmobile. He bought it from the Maharaja of Gavalia, who had a home in Pune. It was a second-hand car, but it was almost new, so to say. So soon after, he drove it to Merazad after buying it, and he went to show it to Baba. Baba, of course, walked around the car, showed much pleasure and interested in it, and admired it. And he sort of, commended my dad on buying it, etc., and all that. So my dad, after a few days, my dad receives a call from Baba, and he's told, you and Villoo should go in this new car to Pune and bring back 2 white pigs in it. So once again, no questioning Baba, and only complete obedience. So my father and Villoo brought these two big white pigs to Ahmednagar in the in this brand new car and took them to Merazad. And you can imagine what condition that car was when they opened the back door and these two big pigs were there. The car was dirty and filthy. It was Baba's way of deflating Sarosh's ego and telling him uh, not to take pride in these materialistic things. I don't think Baba ever wanted those pigs. I wonder what happened to them anyway. So Sarosh was called upon to do a lot of work for Baba. He knew a lot of people. He was very influential. And I remember him talking about it, but I don't remember how the story really goes. But Sarosh was told to buy Seclusion Hill for Baba, which with great difficulty he did do that. And then Baba also gave him the book to keep, which my father did in a bank, in a locker in a bank. But then one day Baba asked for the book back. It was returned to him. But after that, where the book is and with whom it is, it still remains a mystery. Now, my father's love and faith in Baba was so deep and unshakable that no matter what people said, or even if they ridicule Baba in his presence or in his own home, he would just smile and say that their time hadn't come and they did not know what they were saying. My mother and us children were also not staunch believers in the early years. We came to accept Baba as God much later. We respected Baba and we accepted him as someone special and someone whom we held in awe. We would go with my father to Merazad, sit in Manli Hall, embrace Baba, also attend a lot of long darshans in Pune and Nagar. But with all, but in spite of all this, my father never really forced his beliefs or faith on us. Our acceptance came gradually and much later. And I remember my father telling someone that he doesn't have to read books and have explanations as to who Baba is and how Baba is God. He says that acceptance is within him and needs no explanation. When my mother married Sarosh, she did not believe in Baba. She could not accept him as God. And whatever faith she did have in Baba was shattered when her sister, who was married to Adi Jr., died in childbirth. She told Baba had gone to the house, to see them. And she told Baba that if you are God, make my sister alive. Baba spent over an hour trying to explain the philosophy of life and death, but she was too far gone in her grief to listen to him. And uh, she and my father had many arguments, over my dad spending too much of money and time with Baba, and she said that he was neglecting the children. But whatever it was, she always helped my dad where Baba's work was concerned. And it was in 1952 when, for 8 days, the Western lovers, Baba lovers, had all come and they were all living at Mehrabad on the hill. And she was there from morning till evening, looking after them, seeing to their every need. And in those days, there wasn't even electricity at Mehrabad. So in every way, my mother was always by my father's side to help him in whatever Baba wanted her to do. And so when it was Dara and Amrit's wedding, and he wanted my parents to help in all the wedding arrangements. But there again, my parents had arguments. They always loved arguing. And this time it was over which drinks should be served. My father wanted to serve Coca-Cola, but my mother, who was more economical minded and all that, and she said, no, Coca-Cola is too expensive, so we'll serve the local drinks, the raspberry and the Vimto. But my dad said, no, it's got to be Coca-Cola. And so this Coca-Cola and raspberry and Vimto went on between them. And ultimately, they went to Baba and they told Baba, okay, now look, what do we serve? I mean, my mom told Baba, this Coca-Cola is too expensive, but Sarosh is not listening. So Baba said, okay, look, you buy half Coca-Cola and you buy half the amount of the raspberry and the Vimto. So, but then my mom said, if you do that, then everybody will drink the Coca-Cola and nobody will touch the other drinks. So Baba said, no, because once the Coca-Cola is finished, you automatically will have to have the other drinks. So that was how the Baba settled that argument of theirs. Actually, this story is an oft-repeated story by Mani Auntie, and she used to tell it beautifully with the two of them arguing together. It used to make a lovely story. Now, as I said, my father's greatest fault was his generosity and his love of spending money on others. I mean, if someone was in need, he just could not refuse to help, even if it meant going into debt himself. And my mother despaired of this because by now the business had gone, the finances were low. My mother was at her wit's end trying to make two ends meet. So she thought of how she could solve this problem. And her only solution was to go to Baba and to ask him to talk to Sarosh. And maybe Baba could drive some sense into Sarosh and stop him from this spending. So the next time Sarosh went to visit Baba at Mirazar, my mother went along with him to complain to Baba about his spendthrift ways. Baba listened to it all. And at the end, Baba told her, let him do what he wants. Let him spend the money. Let him carry on with his generous ways and all. But my mother said, because Baba says, you cannot change him. This is his nature. So you just got to accept it and allow him to go on like this. My mother was taken aback, but she says, how do I manage? She says, what would happen to me and my children? Because financially we are very badly off. And if something happens to Sarosh, how am I going to manage? So Baba smiled and said, don't worry, I am there and I will look after you. And he was there because when my father died, all he left my mother was a huge amount of debts. And we were just wondering, how my mother was going to pay off these debts. So what he did then was at that time, there was no pilgrim center in Mehrabad. And the Baba lovers who were coming from the West had nowhere to stay. So it was Adi Senior who told my mother, hey, why don't you start keeping Baba lovers at your place? So that is what my mother did. And with the help of Dara and Amrit, they kept Baba lovers for many years together. And they had, at times there would be about 40 of them at a time. And she managed them all their stay there, their conveyance, everything she managed. And she paid back every penny that my father owned. Every little bit that my father owned, my mother paid back. And then she collected enough for her own security. And then the Pilgrim Center at Lower Mehrabad opened, and the Baba lovers all moved away and they stopped coming to her. But only at times when the need arose and she wanted money for something, a Baba lover or two would come and stay with her, and she would be able to make her the two ends meet like that. And so that is how Baba helped her through those very, very difficult initial years after my father passed away. Now, when Baba dropped his body, that was in 1969, the day he dropped his body, my father and mother were on their way to Bombay, and they had stopped by at Nagish Dada Chanji's house, and there they were told what had happened. So my father immediately they turned back and they drove all the way back to Ahmednagar from Bombay. And by the time they reached Mehrabad, it was quite late at night, and there they see that everything is in darkness. There's only a lamp over there. And my father hears that they were planning to inter Baba's body the next day. And he was not for that. He says, no, how can you do that? He says, there are so many people from all over the world who would want to come and pay their last respects to Baba. So there's no way you're going to intern him the next day. The body's got to be kept there open for people to come and pay their respects for the next 7 days. And that is what happened. So the a year or two later, 1971, my father suffered a heart attack. Now, in those days, there wasn't much treatment for a heart attack. All you did, they gave them just bed rest and some medication, no bypass, no angioplasties, nothing like that. So for a couple of months, my father took things easy. He remained at home, didn't run around, didn't do much of going out, etc. But that wasn't his nature. Now, in 72, in December, my sister was getting married. And at that time, there was no holding my father back. He had to be in the forefront, doing, getting all the arrangements done, making all the arrangements for the wedding and everything else. And so the wedding went off well. And my sister went, she and her husband left for their honeymoon. And my father had to go to Bombay in January to make arrangements to get permission from the government for to feed these hundreds of people who were coming for the Amar Titi. At that time, there was some restriction on the number of people you could feed, and you had to have special permission for that. I think there was some famine or something in Maharashtra, and that's why they brought this restriction on. Anyway, my father had to get this permission, come what may, and he went to this Mantralaya, which is the office where he had to get the permission, and he walked the length and breadth of the corridors of the Mantralaya, kept popping angicide into his mouth as he was getting angina pains. But he was determined to get this permission. And ultimately, by the end of the day, he got the permission. And he was so relieved and thankful and so tired. He went home and he told my mother that he had completed Baba's work and he could now die in peace, which he did, because that night he got another massive attack and he died. The last words on his mouth was Baba. That is what my mom told us. And then his body was brought back to Nagar and he's been buried at Lower Mehrabad as per Baba's orders. During his lifetime, my father rose to great heights from small beginnings. He moved around in high society, was elected mayor of Nagar several times, and was very well known in Nagar by one and all. As Baba had said, he did make him the uncrowned king of Nagar. But with all this fame and adulation, my father never lost the common touch. He would move and mingle with the poorest of the poor and with the rich and famous. With the same simplicity, he had no airs and no fanfare. He respected rank and position, but at the same time, he never ever forgot where he came from and never ever refused to help someone who was down and out. As Rudyard Kipling said, if you could walk with the crowd and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, that was my father. He was loved by all, but most of all, he loved Baba, and Baba loved him. It was an all prevailing love. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gulnar Auntie. And now we will ask Freny de Mello to share her offering. Jai Baba, Freny Auntie. Please unmute. Yes, please unmute.
I've unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Now we can. Yes.
Oh, great, great. Okay, thank you, Gulna, for that. She's. I don't know how much time I have left.
Please continue.
To
Please
talk,
continue.
but yeah. But my sister has given the most important facts about my father's life, and I'll touch a little bit on that, and then of course, my personal thing with dad, and then a little bit about my mama. Now, and of course, Baba. So, like Gulnar said, we were brought up like we had a fairy tale existence. Dara Baba, who I call him Dara Baba, and myself, we grew up like little twins because he was just, I was 2 months old when he was born, and Mama took him to her breast and kept him in our home. And he was always been another son to her. So we had a fairy tale existence thanks to dad and mom. And even though he went through all the hardships monetarily, we never felt it because for some reason he had that way of just keeping, everything. Well, everything had to be good, and we lived well. Now, when my mother didn't believe in Baba as God, so we were brought up as Zoroastrians. So we believed in this Christian, like the Christ, the Christian version of God up in heaven. So we also wouldn't accept the fact that Baba was the avatar of the age. We thought, how can a human being like that be God? And Dad, to his absolute amazement, it must have just a test of his faith in Baba. He never minded the fact that we didn't believe in Baba. Not only did we not believe in Baba, but there was so many times when I at least, I remember I used to ridicule, not Baba, but ridicule all the enthusiasm of his Baba followers. And later on, of course, I became like that. And but we would make, I would ridicule that. Daddy never said anything. He was always so patient. And like Baba had said, he would go to Baba and complain that my children don't believe, my wife doesn't believe. Baba said their time will come. Now, Adi Senior, I remember this, he would come very often to the house, have a drink with us, have his dinner, and he would expound on Baba. He had read so many books and he would go into all these theories, and they went way above my head. So I would find it very, very boring. And Dad would, he would be having his drink, but he would wink at me to say that just put up with it. So I remember asking Dad once, how come you never tell us all this? So he says, well, some people read books and believe in Baba, and some people, you believe in him from the heart, which is actually what happened to me later on. And it was my dad's passing, which was a catalyst for my belief in Baba. But there were a couple of anecdotes of Dad, which I will now tell you, because um, apparently, like my Gulnar said, Dad was very sporty. And there was a place, a field on the road to Satara, where Baba had met with an accident. I think it was in 1956, I'm not sure. But it was at that spot earlier where they had stopped to, on their way, they had stopped, it was on a previous visit, they had stopped to have a cricket match. And there were two teams, and Baba made Dad captain of one team, and he handed him the bat. And then I think the captain of the other team might have been Nariman, I'm not sure. But the team played, I don't know who won, who lost, but that was Dad, Baba giving, like, there was a lovely picture of Baba handing over the bat to Dad, and which was nice. But on that same spot later on, Baba met with an accident. So maybe that spot was of some significance, I'm not sure. But on another occasion, with my mother, driving back from Aurangabad, they were in an open Jeep. And some of you know what Jeep is, four-wheeler cars with no doors on the side, And they went on the way back. There's this dry riverbed. So they were going towards it, and suddenly there was this flash flood, and they were swept away. There was no ramparts on the side. They were swept away, and there was water gushing around them. Mama fortunately knew how to swim. My dad knew how to swim. So they were yelling out. Daddy was yelling out to Baba, Baba, Baba. And he says he felt as though the water was just going to swirl over his head, and suddenly it receded. So he told Baba the story later, and he said, Baba, I thought I was going, but then I said your name and the waters receded. So Baba said, remember this, I will let the waters come up to your nose, but I will not let it rise above and drown you. So that stuck with me. And throughout my life, I've always thought of that when there's been any difficulty, you think can't get any worse. And then suddenly it gets better and the waters don't rise above your nose. And I remember that very clearly, my father telling me that. Then each time we travel with Dad in the car, we'd go to Bombay or wherever. On the way, we always had to stop at Erich's family's home. And there was always a lot of love and hug and kisses and tea and biscuits and whatnot. But every time Dad started a journey, he would say Baba's name for about 10, 15 minutes, just keep repeating it. And we were all told to keep quiet and not disturb him. And then the minute it was over, he'd say, okay, now you talk. So then we'd sort of start asking questions or whatever we had to do. And that was it. And we enjoyed that with Dad going out Bombay, Pune, wherever. But what I did want to say, okay, now I'm going to talk about so this is a very thing. So we would be taken to Mehrabad, or Mehrazad rather. And whenever we went, we were always dressed nicely, but we never went willingly. I mean, it was always, I would rather go horse riding, or I would rather do this, or rather do that. And Dad had to sort of cajole and say, come, we'll go to Baba. And I'd say, okay, we'll go. But as after I reached 18, and Mom and Dad thought this time I got married, because my sister had got married at the age of 20. So they said, okay, now she's got to get married. So they produced this long line of suitable suitors for me, but I didn't like any of them. And I wanted to get away from that. I hated going to the local college. Didn't like that. I wanted to get away from Nagar and go and do my studies in an art school, but I couldn't do that. So they had a problem with where I should stay, but then I thought I'd join Air India, which was when I was in my early 20s. Now, I spoke to Mom about it. So Mom said, look, how on earth are we going to convince your father? Because he doesn't believe in his daughter's working. So I said, so Mom said, well, I've got an idea. We'll go to Baba and we will ask Baba we'll talk to Baba about this. So I said, okay. So I told Dad that Sunday, we used to go on Sundays. I said, Dad, on Sunday, Merazad, I'd like to come with you. I mean, he almost fell over with tears because I never actually willingly said I was coming to Baba. So I got dressed up nicely and went to Baba, to Merazad. Always loved going there because Baba has this wonderful, loving presence. And we'd hug him, and it was like, you're hugging a soft cloud. It was that lovely. And he would always do this, each time he met us. And then he asked when we were sitting down, he says, so what is, in sign language, so what's going on? So I said, Baba, I want to go to Bombay and work. So my father didn't know this. He was so surprised. He was so, you could see him getting angry. And he said, no, Baba, how can she go? So Baba just put his hand up and he said, let her go. So Baba said, but Dad said, no, but Baba, we found this very nice boy for her. He's very rich. He owns race horses. He has a khadi sakkar factory. Khadi sakkar is a sort of crystallized sugar, which my dad would suck on every time he traveled. It was good for his throat. So Baba said, no, not a good man. I've got a very good man in mind for her. You let her go to Bombay and work. So uh, I got permission. Daddy was very angry, but he couldn't say anything. And somehow Baba made it so smooth. I went and got PG accommodation with an aunt of mine in Bombay. And then I joined Air India. And Dad kept saying, oh, after a couple of weeks, you're going to wrap up your clothes in a little bundle and come running back to us in Pune. Because we were so spoilt and so protected. And he thought, where's she going to go? Going off to work in a train and having to fend for herself. But I loved it. I stuck it out. And then ultimately, a year or two later, I met my present husband. He was we used to work at the airport, and he was my boss at that time. And of course, when we started dating, I thought, never, never are my parents going to agree, because my husband was a Catholic and we were Parsis. So, but surprisingly, Baba had earmarked him, because when all the Baba groups would come from the US, my husband was always the one who facilitated them. He would have them clear through customs. He would have Harry, I forget his second name, the person who was visually handicapped. He would have him escorted. So he and Jar Dastur would contact my husband, and between, through them, they would facilitate the Baba followers, get them out through customs, immigration very quickly. So he was actually doing Baba's work without realizing it. So anyways, finally, we got married, like my sister says, and we got married, and I was not willing to, I didn't want to go for a honeymoon, because I was getting this terrible premonition. And I told my mother, I said, I don't want to go now. I said, the whole family's there, everybody's there. So she said, don't be silly. What's your husband going to think? You don't want to go on your honeymoon? He had booked, my husband had booked a trip for us to Mauritius. So off we went. And a few days after we left for our honeymoon, my father passed away. And there were no flights coming back for me to come back in time for my funeral. For his funeral, sorry. So when we did get back, I remember my mother hugging me and saying, I'm just very sorry, because she knew that she must have realized I had this premonition, and I never got to see my father, and sort of touch his feet after he died. She was upset about that. And of course, I was devastated. And then I remember going into his dressing room, and that is when I said I had my epiphany about Baba, because I went into his dressing room and I touched, his hairbrush. I smelt it. There was the smell of his pomade on it. I opened his cupboard. I could smell him on the clothes. And then I kept saying to myself, I said, how does this happen? 1 minute the physical presence is there, the next minute he's not there. Where does he go? where does his soul go? And I looked up above his dressing table, and there's this picture of Baba. And I asked him, I said, so does he come, has he come to you, Baba? And so suddenly in a flash, it was like literally in a flash, I just got this um, epiphany, revelation, whatever you call it. And I said, yes, he's with you because you are the universal soul, all of us souls mingle with you, and you are the avatar. And that was so. My dad's death was a catalyst for me to believe in Baba as the avatar. And it was an earth shattering moment for me. But and then after that, I stayed. Even though we just come back from a honeymoon, my husband was very kind. He said, "You stay on with your mother because she needs you." He went back to Bombay to work, and I stayed on with Mama. Then welcomed Dara and Amrit, who came, and who then later on helped my mother with taking care of the hundreds of Baba lovers who came and stayed in our home. And like my sister said, that's what helped her pay back all the debts which my dad had left behind. But and I remember there was a Baba group which came from New York. They sung a song about my father. There was Amar Titi, and I was just all the time during that time. I remember crying and crying not so much for my dad, but just crying because because I was just feeling so dreadful about the fact that it had taken me so long to get to Baba or to understand him, even though we were there, we used to be in his physical presence every week practically. But it was not my time. And then, but I remember going to Mehrazad after my dad died, and after I'd had the revelation, and I went and I hugged Mehra like I always did, and then she just whispered in my ear. She said, "Go to Baba's room and ask for forgiveness." And she knew. So I went and I went to Baba's room. I knelt my head on his pillow and I wept and I wept and I wept. And I behaved just like all the Baba followers who I used to make fun of. So I said, well, this is Baba showing me how it is when you release your emotions. So um, that was that. And then, like I said, and then of course, we went to my dad's grave, and he was at the foothill of Mehrabad. And I knelt there and I said I was so sorry that I had never believed in Baba because it would have made him so happy. And he would beg us to come. He would beg us to go to Mehrazad, beg us to go to Mehrabad. And now that's all we want to do is go to Mehrabad, to Baba Samadhi. So, anyways, Dad must be happy wherever he is. But now I'll say a little bit about my mama, who was absolutely the best mother anyone could have. Gave us our sound, solid values in life. And even though she was not a follower of Meher Baba to start with, she did so much of work for Meher Baba. She was like his hospitality manager. Every time people came from abroad, in those times there was no hotel, no nothing, no pilgrim center. Mom was put in charge to entertain them. And then when they had gatherings at Mehrabad, Mom went there with her cooks and her vessels, and Mama never cooked in her life, but she was a very good organizer, and she used to have food prepared for everybody, and she was just amazing. She did Baba's work without actually believing in Baba as the avatar, but I think she did more work than probably a lot of other people who probably believed in Baba. That's what I felt. She was, but and then, Baba, the way he got us all to believe in him, he was like for me, it was my dad and his passing, which was a catalyst. But with my mother, this was a very sweet story. So my mother had a had a thing for cleanliness. She was very, very, fussy about cleanliness and everything. And Baba knew that. So there was this Baba Center which was being opened in a place called Hamirpur in the northern state of India, which was a small dusty town, and they were going to put up a statue of Baba, and uh, they wanted someone to come and unveil the statue. So Baba told Dad, you go as my representative, and you make sure you take Villoo with you. So Dad said, oh God, Baba, I mean, seriously, in a dusty place like that, Villoo's not going to agree to go. He says, well, you just tell her from me that she's got to go and she will go. Don't worry, I will make sure she goes. So, and I will have all arrangements made for a good, clean, nice place for her to stay. So Dad came home, told Mom, Baba must have fixed it. So Mom said yes. So they went off to Hamirpur, and Mom, who didn't like to, hug people who looked a little grubby, and she would yell at some of the Baba followers who'd come if they didn't have their baths, she'd yell at them. So she was very, very fussy. So they went to Hamirpur, and Mom came back a Baba lover. So she tells us the story that when they were on that stage, she and Dad, and they unveiled the statue, and she said there were hundreds and hundreds of poor people who had come from the surrounding villages. And they all came to meet Mom and Dad because they were, for them, that was Baba had sent them. And they came and they all hugged Mom and hugged Dad. And Mom never flinched. She said, I didn't stop them. I hugged them back. And she said, all I could see was this love flowing out of them all. And she said, I thought to myself, there must be something in this Baba for all these people to love him the way they do. So when she came back, believing in Baba, she told Dad, she says, I want to go and tell Baba that I now accept him as the avatar. So when they went there, and she told Baba, so Dad said, don't believe her, Baba. She probably wants something from you. So so Baba says, no, this time I know she does believe in me. She has truly become, my Baba lover. So after that, of course, Mom did. And then when Dad died, and like my sister said, Mom was left with all these debts to pay up, but Baba organized it that she was able to keep the Baba followers. But before that started, she was sitting at her little table in her bedroom where she and my father would sit and have their morning cup of tea. And she was looking up, and she kept saying, Baba, what is going to happen? How am I going to manage? How am I going to pay up all these debts? And then she looked out of the window, and she sees there was outside the gate, there was a tree, a peepal tree, with on which she saw Baba's face. It might have been a play of light and shadows, but we could see it at any time, and everyone who came could see it. So she saw Baba's face, and then she said, okay, this is a sign from Baba, and this is him telling me that he's going to be with me. And he was, because after that, like my sister said, the Baba came, Tara and Amrit were there to help her, and she managed to pay up all her debts. And the minute she paid them all up, the Baba lovers stopped coming, except for occasionally when she needed some money, one or two would drop in. So that was it. But till my mama, till the end of her life, she became such an avid Baba follower, and it made up for all the years she wasn't. And I think likewise with us, with me and my sister, all the years we weren't, we made up for it, I think, with the intensity of our faith in Baba. And that's it. So now I'm going to end this because I think it's way past my time. So I'll say Jai Baba to everybody, and thank you for listening. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much, Gulnar Auntie and Freny Auntie. for this very, very precious, intimate share about your parents. And such stories help all youngsters, at least like us, and new Baba lovers to hold fast unto Baba's Daman more and more each day, and to do or strive to do rather with his love and grace best we can to please beloved Baba. So thank you so much for sharing. We will now play the Meher Dhun, followed by the Australian Aarti. After that, we will have Kashmira and Rosalie do their little sharing, and followed by the potluck sharing for Sarosh and Villoo Irani from any of our wonderful satsangis present today. So please be with us, Gulnar Auntie and Freny Auntie, through it. Just give me a second. I will. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
Oh, glorious, eternal, ancient one, your face is a bright, transcendental sun. Lighten this dark world and the tears I weep. My heart, meher, I give to you to keep. Creator, yet creationless you are. Truth and truth's body, divine avatar. Through compassion, the three worlds maintain. Destroy this ignorance that life sustains. These five lights are the whirling spokes of breath of the world's wheel that bears me unto death. Unless you are infinitely kind, break the wheels of which is conditioned mind. This incense is my love, these fruits my art, which to please you I have shaped from my heart. Accept them as you would a simple flower that has no use beyond its shining hour. You are myself, I sing to you in grace, and beg your love to bear me through the day. Till you, the ever-living perfect one, illume my darkness with your shining sun.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय. We'll have 1 minute of silence. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय.
जय बाबा.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय.
जय.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की
मेहर बाबा
जय.
की जय.
अवतार मेहर बाबा
बाबा
की जय.
की जय.
We will now ask Kashmira to share. Kashmira, please unmute.
जय बाबा. हर दिन है नया, हर रात निराली है. बाबा है दिल में मेरे तो रोज दिवाली है. हर दिन है नया, हर रात निराली है. बाबा है दिल में मेरे तो रोज दिवाली है. बाबा ऊंचे से ऊंचा है और युग अवतारी है. बाबा ऊंचे से ऊंचा है और युग अवतारी है, उनकी महिमा है अपार और शान निराली है। हर दिन है नया और रात निराली है, बाबा है दिल में मेरे तो रोज दिवाली है, हर दिन है नया। सब प्रेमी जन मिलकर बाबा की जय बोलो, सब प्रेमी जन मिलकर बाबा की जय बोलो। जिनके घर में वो है वो भाग्यशाली है, जिनके घर में वो है वो भाग्यशाली है। हर दिन है नया, हर रात निराली है, बाबा है दिल में मेरे तो रोज दिवाली है, हर दिन है नया। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
Lovely, Jai Baba. We
जय
now
बाबा।
have Rosalie. Thank you, Kashmira.
It's funny. It's like every day now because our dear USA is in such a mess right now. So every day I have to. I don't listen to the news, but I play my Baba films, and then gradually throughout the day I hear what happened. So I feel I'm using technology, our very advanced technology, in the best way I can think of. And other than a constant jop, just repeating Baba's name because it's the ultimate weapon. But I found this quote and I just think it's beautiful. Today, the urgent need of mankind is not sects or organized religions, but love. Divine love will conquer hate and fear. It will justify itself. I have come to awaken in man this divine love. It will restore to him the unfathomable richness of his own eternal being and will solve all his problems. There's one more thing. Religion has to go. God has to come. Faith has to real and true arise in the heart of man. Let the heart come and the head go. Let all be one in feeling. God has to come. The mind has to accept his presence in the heart. Man has to know the deep meaning of life, crude, harsh as the show in controversy. All is to be realized. Meher Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much. And now we open up the house for our potluck sharing on any stories, experiences, anecdotes that you may have for Sarosh K. Irani and Villoo S. Irani. Or if you would like to ask any questions or share greetings with Freny Auntie and Gulnar Auntie. Please raise your hands digitally or unmute, and one by one you can speak. Who would like to begin? Please raise your hand digitally, or right now in the video you can raise your hand to begin with. Who would like to inaugurate the session? Betty. Yes, Betty. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Betty, please unmute.
Was well, well, first of all, my family did stay at Villoo's in 1987, and it was a little bit of heaven. It was a wonderful time, and we had a little 7-year-old, our daughter Shireen, with us, and Villoo's servant, I think his name was Ram or Raj. I think people who were there would remember, was such a special man, and he took such interest in her. She was the baby, and and she would not eat meat. She became a vegetarian, but he just persuaded a little bit of chicken. He fixed it so nicely for her. He was so wonderful. So anyway, that I'm sure that Gulnar and Freny must remember that dear man. It was it was special. But also, I saw a question here about Chris Barker asked, was Sarosh, was he ever in the military? So I don't know who would answer, but Gulnar.
Yeah.
You can unmute Freny auntie or Gulnar auntie.
Okay.
Dad
Gulnar,
wasn't-
you're saying it?
Yeah, you say it.
Okay. No. Dad was not officially in the army, but because during the war he had a lot of, dealings with the British troops, he did a lot of business with them. Like he used to supply, that was part of his business. He used to supply them with stuff, and then he had these mobile cinemas going around. And I think for that, or for, I don't know, any other reason, they gave him the title of Khan Sahib and also a rank in the army. And he was attached to a regiment, and Dad was very proud of his it was an honorary rank in the military. And he would, you get promoted, he would also get his promotions. So by the time he passed away, he was actually a colonel. So he was very proud of that. And also, they had these, the army in Naga would have these mess nights, dinner nights, where they'd all dress up in these fabulous uniforms with all their medals. And Dad would have his array of medals on his uniform. He had all the uniforms made, much to Mom's. She didn't really approve. But he would have these medals, and people would say, good heavens, Sarosh, where did you get all these medals from? And then Mummy, with her usual candor, would say, he bought them from Chor Bazaar, which is like the thieves' market. She said he went and got them there, which wasn't true. But say that. And so that was it. So he was unofficial. So he enjoyed all the perks, and so did Mum till she was alive, of the army. Like, we could visit the army mess, we could visit their canteen where they sold things at discounted prices, including alcohol. And so it was it was a nice thing for Dad to have this honorary rank. He was very proud of it. And so that's it, just to answer the question. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Chris who would like to share. Chris, please unmute.
Okay. Let's see. So in 1983, I went to Mehrabad, and it was a year of drought. And so the Pilgrim Center was closed. And because the Pilgrim Center was closed, I got to stay at Villoo Villa. So it was a real treat to have that opportunity to stay there at Villoo Villa and experience that. It was such a lovely home. And Villoo was so entertaining. She was very, very funny. She had, she ruled that house with an iron hand, so to speak. And she had a servant there named Raju. So she would run around yelling, Raju, and do this, do that. Well, one of the other people who was staying there at Villoo Villa was Danny Sanford from New York. And I think he and I got the idea to put on a play at Mehrabad. And the name of the play was Murder at Villoo Villa. And Danny played a detective named Shaw, first name Rick. So all through the play, when people wanted him, they would shout, Rick Shaw, Rick Shaw. And so we put on the play there at Marazad. So we were in the front of Mondley Hall there, or where we all listened to Erich and so forth. And all the chairs were set there, and Villoo and Dara and Amrit and all the women Mondley, and of course all the pilgrims were there watching this play. And all through the play, I could hear Dara just howling with laughter. And now what you need to know about the play is that the person that I played in the play was Villoo.
Oh.
I didn't have a beard at that time. They dressed me up in a sari, a wig, and of course Villoo was short and round, and I was tall and thin. But here we are.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can see it. There I am.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yes.
Oh wow.
Villoo in the red,
How
at me next
oh
to
my
Villoo,
goodness.
and then a little French girl
Oh
who played Raju.
yeah.
So I would be,
Oh.
throughout the play, I was running around saying, Raju, Raju, where are you? And Raju would be right behind me, and I would turn around and Raju would go the other way around. And so Villoo was just laughing and laughing and laughing. So we had a wonderful time doing that play, Murder at Villoo Villa.
Oh,
And
lovely. What?
that evening, when we came home, I got there a little bit late for some reason, and the table was already set, her guests there, all the Westerners, and Villoo, beaming, ushered me to my seat right next to her, because I had been in this play and I had played Villoo in the play. So I sat down there, and she made a big deal about how much she liked the play and everything. And then she handed me my cup of steaming tea, and she said, drink, drink. And everybody's watching me very closely as I raise this tea to my lips and drink a little bit of it and go, it was water and a little tea, I think, but it had about 2 tablespoons of salt in it.
Salt, yeah.
So I had to run outside and spit this salt water out of my mouth because it was so strong. But she got her revenge for me playing
Revenge.
her in the play. It was a wonderful experience to stay there at Villoo's. Villoo's was a beautiful place, and I'm just so fortunate, I feel, that I had that chance to stay there at Villoo Villa. So thank you for your wonderful stories about Villoo and Sarosh. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a lovely story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was wonderful. And now we have Tina who would like to share something. Tina, please unmute.
Yeah, I stayed at Villoo Villa twice. I think Amrit lived there for a while. I remember the first time I got there in 1977, British Airways had lost all my luggage. And I was so sad. I was crying because I just had the clothes on my back, which were winter clothes. And Amrit met me at the door, and she's like, what's the matter? And I was like, British Airways lost my suitcase and I just have the clothes on my back. And she just looked at me and she said, oh, that's wonderful. You can buy all new clothes at my boutique. And she had this room with all and I remember I went there in the 90s with my son, my 7-year-old son, and my husband. And I was really worried about my son. He was overeating quite a bit. And I would tell him, just one portion. And Villoo would say, oh, shut up, Mummy. He's on vacation.
Yeah.
And I very proud. She had a television, real showers, comfortable beds. It was luxury. And I do remember Raju and Anita, who's another servant there.
Yes, the cook.
Yes. Very nice. It was lovely.
Thank you, Tina. Tina always brings these situations and songs so alive that we almost think we are right there in the heart of it all and experiencing all the fun together. Jai Baba. Thank you, Tina. We have dear Jeff Warburton, the culprit in his love. He said he is the culprit behind the Australian Aarti that we play at our EastWest Satsangs every Saturday. So, yes, Jeff, please unmute.
So I too had some great times at Villoo Villa, as many of us did in those early years. I always remember that Roger, the way she would call Roger. That was so sweet. She was very funny and just a lot of fun to be with, and had a kind of like a New York personality, meaning she wasn't didn't have all the niceties. But anyway, there were a couple of things that from your father Sarosh that made a deepest impression on me in this life. And one of them was, he used to say his whole life, what his practice was is, and I'll just stand up, he would just say, he would just say Baba's name from his heart. Baba, 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 Baba. So in and behind all of that he was doing, Baba's name was being drummed, from the very depths of him. And you could feel that. But I mean, he would just stand up with his fist and say it would just be pumping out of his heart. And the other thing that I found invaluable in my own life with Baba, and it was 50 years ago, he came to New York and he gave a talk, probably 1970 or 71. And I'm not going to get all of these facts correct because at the time I wasn't listening to remember things real accurately, but this is as I remember it. The historical thing you can trace out, but there's something in here that had a great impact on me. I was a young kid, kind of been with Baba for a couple of years, but I was still trying to feel who Baba is. What was he like? And so anyway, Sarosh told the story how he was at the Manzili meme. This was in the early 20s. And this is as I remember. It might not be accurate, but at the end of the 9 months of the men being there in Manzili meme, he asked each one what they wanted to do. Some of them wanted to go to college. Some of them were engaged to get married, and some people wanted to just stay with him and go on as his mandali. And Sarosh, I guess, told him, I don't know if he was engaged to be married at that time, but he was going he was going to get married. And so he got married at some point. And I think if I recall, this may not be correct, that he got the franchise for maybe Chevrolet or something up in Nasik or Nagpur. I can't remember.
Nasik.
And for a
Nasik,
time,
Nasik.
Nasik. And for a time he was there, and I got the impression maybe a year went by, but maybe it was just months that, he was newly married and setting up his business, and he didn't come to see Baba. And so after a certain length of time, he came to see Baba, and Baba was, I had pictured it at some bungalow, and Baba had the men there, and he was in a very good mood, and he was interacting with everybody in a beautiful way. But he kept passing over Sarosh. He would respond to this person, then he would respond that person, skipping over, Sarosh, and all afternoon went by. Baba completely ignored him. And finally, Sarosh was, he's a huge, strong man, robust. He broke down and he came before Baba weeping and said, Baba, I haven't seen you in months. And all afternoon, you haven't even acknowledged me. And Baba said, now you know how I've felt all these years, all these months that you haven't come to see me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then Baba said, look in your heart. And Sarosh looked in his heart and he saw Baba in his heart and passed out, and they had to carry him off. But the thing that was so powerful is that Baba feels these things even more than we do, but he just doesn't react with his ego. I mean, he has. That's the first time I felt Baba feels these things more deeply than we do. It's not like he's the avatar and he's above all of this. Like when Baba was in England and they had him in the winter outside just wearing a sadra, and Baba had to act like the cold wasn't affecting him. But afterwards, he revealed that, I was cold there. You people think that I don't have feelings, that I don't, have any physical thing. So that really changed. That was an eye opener for me. And I got such a different feeling about Baba, that he feels all of these things more deeply than we do. And that's what I got from that, 50 some years ago when Sarosh revealed that. And so anyway, that's my sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Freny and Gulnar. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely story that was.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah.
That was really touching. Thank you. We have Havovi Auntie with us, and I'm sure that Havovi Auntie would have a story or two. Havovi Auntie, can you unmute?
Plenty.
We would love to hear from you. Havovi Dada Chanji, Havovi Auntie,
Can't hear.
are you there? Okay. All right. I think Amrit is also there. Amrit, is it possible to share a word or two? Jai Baba.
Hi,
Can't
Roshani.
hear.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes,
wait,
we can hear you.
Dara will share. I'll call Dara. Just hold on 1 second.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I know. I'll just call Dara. Dara will share something.
Sure,
Dara,
sure.
can you come quickly? No, but however we couldn't unmute her. This thing come.
You'll put your video is off, Amrit.
You don't want video. Just sit.
No, just a voice.
Sit.
Because I'm in my
Okay.
Jai Baba, everyone. Jeff, Chris, Tina, Betty.
Hi, Jai Baba, Dara Baba. Amrit.
What do you want to look at me for? Anyway,
Jai Baba.
I just want to add a few funny anecdotes of Villoo's or mischief she used to play with the Pope pilgrims. She and Dipindu and Mirazad had some toy with each other. And Villoo would tell this Pope pilgrim, teach him a swear word in Gujarati. Of course, the pilgrim had no idea what it meant, and said, go and tell this to Pindu. So, of course, very dutifully, the Pope pilgrim would go to Pindu and say, what Villoo had taught him. And immediately, Pindu would say, did that naughty Villoo teach you this? He said, yes, she told me to tell you this. So of course, the Pindu said, okay. And he would
there's our Baba.
send another message back to Villoo, equally, as bad. So this went on for a little while. Anyway, yeah, and a couple of things about earlier on when Freny and Gulnar shared their stories of Sarosh and Villoo. Jeff, you mentioned that time when Sarosh had given a talk in New York. What was it, Freny? When did he go after Baba dropped the body, Freny? 70, 71?
No. He went before that, Dara.
Yes.
Yeah, because
No, Gulnar, he went once.
70.
Yeah, but Cecil, it's
I know he went with, I don't know what I know
Cecil sent him in.
in
He went
52
in
to America. That's when they had the accident, and actually Sarosh was driving the second car. But no, this is after Baba dropped the body.
Yes.
When he was working at Air India.
He went, I think, in 1970. 70.
Okay, 70.
Yeah.
So
He went in 70 or 71, one of the two. Yeah.
71, he got the heart attack training. He went in 70.
The 70 must have gone.
It was
70, yeah.
What?
So whatever.
On one of the talk, some Baba lover to ask Sarosh, he said, Baba tells us that at any given time, there are 5 perfect masters on earth. Would you by any chance know who they are? And of course, Dad would have no idea. But, he didn't give it any thought. And he said, well, I don't know who the other 4 are, but the 5th one is me. He was just a funny episode. Yeah. And then going back to the time when Gulnar said, of course, when Dad's downfall came, when, he had very little money left with him. One day, Baba calls him to Merazad and says, Sarosh, I need X amount of money. I think it was around 10,000 rupees. In those days, of a lot of money for some work of Baba's. So he tells Sarosh, can you give me that? So Sarosh says, Baba, I am almost bankrupt. I have no money, but I'll do one thing. I will write out a check for 10,000 rupees. Then it's up to you to make sure the check doesn't bounce. So, yeah. But, of course, it was just Baba wanting to know what Sarosh's reaction would be. That's all. Yeah. Anyway, I think I've said my bit.
I think also in that case, he gave him the check and said, "Here, you're God, cash it."
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, both Gulnar, Freny,
thank you, Dara Baba.
And and Roshani and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Right.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. These are more than precious. Precious is an understatement. How are we, Auntie? We would love you to share, please.
Hi, how are we?
Hi, Gulnar, Freny. Lovely hearing.
Hi.
Second or third time I'm hearing you, and every time I enjoy it even more. Anyway, it was a pleasure to know both your dad and mom. Of course, Dad I knew at a distance. Hello, Sarosh uncle, sort of thing. But with your mommy, I was very close to her and was very, very loving and sweet to me. And this is something I'd like to share. A lot of you may not know, but for 7 years I visited Baba and I didn't come to Baba. So once in Merazad, Mera and I were there, and Mera said, Govi, I knew you didn't love Baba at the time, but like Villoo auntie came to please Sarosh, you came to please Hoshan, and that's how you came to Baba. At first, you didn't love him, but you came to please Hoshan, which is far from the truth. In fact, I came to him as a little 18-year-old when I first met him in Ashiana, and I came to keep a tab on Hoshan because I knew that Hoshan was drawn to Baba, and I was an absolute 100% Zoroastrian, and I said, oh my God, I better keep a watchful eye on Hoshan that he don't fall in love with Baba. So I came to keep a tab on him to make sure he didn't fall in love with their Baba. So I didn't say anything. I just smiled at Mehra, but Mehra was very sweet. He said, just like Villoo auntie came to please Sarosh, you came to please Hoshan. So that was something, And I remember the good old days in Pune. Freny, remember I used to come over from Freny Kaki's house in Pune to your house, and I'd sit around with Mummy and talk. Love Mummy, and give some very lovely memories of Villoo Villa also, and the lovely food. After the vegetarian food, I'm quite a foodie, and after the vegetarian food, the food and the desserts and everything, and the love and everything Mummy serves is so wonderful. I remember Villoo auntie very, very fondly, and lovely to have met all of you so beautifully. Baba bless you, and a blessed, Baba blessful 2021 coming your way. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Haba. Thank you, Jai Baba. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Lovely. We have Chris who has something more to share. Yes, Chris.
This is very short, but hopefully you can see this. This is Sarosh.
Dad, yes.
Yep. And this is at the Baba Center in the meeting place in that, I guess it was that year, 1970. And so Sarosh was there and he gave a talk, and it was wonderful. And one thing that's amusing though is this little girl down in the corner who's looking up at Sarosh and wondering, who is this giant?
Yeah.
I think that's the Smith's little girl, Craig Smith's little girl. Anyway, that's all it is, just a picture. Okay,
thank you. Thank you, Jai Baba.
And I hope we hear more stories from Amrit.
Yeah.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Wonderful. So, is there anyone who would love to share something?
No, I think not.
Okay. Freny auntie, is there anything you would like to say for the closing?
No.
Okay.
No, just to thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. We every time we share stories, and we just started recently, my sister and myself, it forces us to remember all the things that sometimes have been locked away in our minds, and Baba's way of getting us to share all this and get us closer to him. I think that's what it is. And because it's also an exercise, we have to remember, we write down, and then we think about Baba all the time. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
Thank everybody for their story, their songs, everything. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you to you both and to everyone for their offerings to Baba, which further enriches all of us and our hearts to love Baba more and more each day. So to close this session, can we have Vijayji to sing one more beautiful ghazal or song by public demand?
Yeah, it's really wonderful. What a blessing to hear those stories. And it's very touching that from the Sarosh family, from the airport to the Villoo Villa and Sarosh canteen. Sarosh canteen we loved, and it was a blessing for everyone to enjoy the tea, lime briki, sadhu bhagwan, and it's sorry to hear the hardship the family underwent, but it was all Baba took care of it. and it's really very touching. Thank you, thank you. Uh, so I
Thank you.
just sing, yeah. I sing this ghazal uh, was sang before Baba at Guru Prasad. आप जिनके करीब होते हैं, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं, वो बड़े खुश नसीब होते हैं, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं। जब तबीयत किसी पे आती है, जब तबीयत किसी पे आती है, मौत के दिन करीब होते हैं, वो बड़े खुश नसीब होते हैं, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं। इश्क में और तो कुछ नहीं मिलता, इश्क में और तो कुछ नहीं मिलता, सैकड़ों गम नसीब होते हैं, आप इनके करीब होते हैं, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं। नूह की कद्र कोई क्या जाने, नूह की कद्र कोई क्या जाने, कहीं ऐसे अदीब होते हैं, उनसे मिलना फिराक का मिलना, उनका मिलना फिराक का मिलना, आप किसको नसीब होते हैं, आप किसको नसीब होते हैं, वो बड़े खुश नसीब होते हैं, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं। अवतार मेहर बाबा की
Baba
जय।
ki jai. That was lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
That
much,
was
Vijay.
lovely.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
Lucky in his love, blessed in his love, loved in his love are we all. Thank you so much, Baba, for bringing us together each day in your love to share the
Thank you.
offerings from our heart. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a wonderful East-West Satsang today. And see you all tomorrow. Some of you who join us for the meditation, for the 7 realities with Baba chanting. And rest all, see you for the next week, Saturday, East-West Satsang. Thank you so much. And we will
Thank
do
you.
a 3 times Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai before we close once more. So everyone, you can unmute your mics. Avatar
Meher
Baba
Ki
Jai.
Meher Baba
Avatar
Ki
Meher Baba Ki Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Baba, so beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Gulnar and Freny. Jai Baba.
Thank you. Thank you. Jai Baba. Jai Baba. To all of you, and thank you. Jai Baba.